Hi, I'm Tom Marks with the Marks Law Firm in Orlando, Florida. Welcome to the Healthy Family Law Attorney. Today we have an interview with a special guest, Eric Reinhold. Eric is a graduate of the Naval Academy in Annapolis. He got his BS in economics there. He also graduated from the University of Baltimore with his MBA and has his CFP, Certified Financial Planner designation. So Eric works currently for Ameriprise Financial from 2013 to present, and he is a published author. Eric, welcome to the channel. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me. As you mentioned, I did go to the Naval Academy. That was kind of a life-changing event for me and wouldn't have happened unless a football coach came down and actually talked to a coach at my high school. So I did play, I was recruited and played football for Navy while I was there. Also, I am married to my high school sweetheart. So we started dating in high school, dated for 7 years and got married right after graduation. And so we're just coming up on 33 years of marriage. So that's great. Now we have 3 adult children. So my son, who's the youngest, actually he kind of followed in the footsteps of the Navy. He went to Auburn and went to the Navy ROTC. So he just reported to his ship in Norfolk this week. So he is carrying on the Navy tradition right now.
Well, great. You know, little known fact, I didn't know until you and I met, and it just came up in conversation, that you and your wife both attended my high school in Miami, Florida, Palmetto High School in Miami. And I think you graduated a couple years after me.
A few, I think. Probably a lot. I looked a little young.
All right, thanks for that kudo there. So, okay, let's jump into it. So you're a financial planner. Right. You deal obviously with a lot of clients going through a divorce or contemplating. Tell our audience, how can you help a family? Let's say somebody who's coming in, they're thinking about a divorce, or they think that their spouse is considering filing for divorce. What kind of advice can you give them?
Probably the biggest thing that I look at when someone's contemplating or just beginning the process are, one, net worth, and trying to make sure they gather all of their assets and make sure that everything's known. But also more important than that, in a way, is just confirming the spouse's income. And I've run into it a couple of times recently where there's one spouse that has a large business, so we've had to go ahead and get a business valuation done because we're going to be, splitting assets based on the value. And another spouse where they were on a commission, so their income was varying quite a bit. So kind of coming up with, just a good number for how best to split that. Because what I find is that you've got an issue where spouses are typically going to be concerned about, okay, what's my life going to be like after, and am I going to be financially secure? So those two things are kind of the biggest pieces that will contribute to that security, post-divorce that you want to know about up front.
Right. Those are helpful. Good point. I know that when I have someone come in to see me, let's say it's the spouse that doesn't make the money, so they don't really have an income, or they make very little, but maybe they've amassed a sufficient or significant amount of assets in their brokerage account, and they can meet with their broker and say, hey, I'd like to divide that in half now. We'll provide an accounting of what I did with it. But do you ever see that happen, where they set aside money so they don't disappear during the divorce, and also so they have funds available as they're going through the divorce?
You'll see that happen through the process, because sometimes you can have one spouse that'll, their mindset is, hey, I want to hurry up and spend a bunch of money on some different things, before the divorce happens and things get split. And so in their mind, it's like, if I buy this item now, it's somehow going to be outside of the mix. So it is important as quickly as possible in the process to get a good accounting of what's been spent, and maybe even look back if one of the spouses has done that. I mean, they go buy a $50,000 car for themselves. Well, wait a second, you pulled all that money out to do that just as we were getting into this process. So I think it is important to get an accounting right where you're at now, but also look back a little bit and see if there's anything that's gone on like that.
Right. That's good advice. Also, our audience should know that any assets purchased or any income that was earned during the marriage, meaning from the date of the marriage to the date of the filing of the petition, are marital assets. So if one spouse goes out and buys an expensive car or some investment or whatever, that's still a marital asset subject to being divided by the court. So that your spouse can't just go out and blow the wad kind of thing.
Right.
Okay, so let's say, what do you do if somebody comes to you, they've already filed or their spouse has already filed, and they come to you and say, what do I do now?
Kind of when you're in the midst of the divorce, I find that's kind of becomes the peak emotional part, because now you're dealing with the back and forth typically between attorneys. Maybe you're doing mediation, but it creates the highest anxiety at that point, because now it's starting to get very real. So what I try to do is help the spouse I'm working with see what it can look like, post divorce, and a way to bring some calm to that. It helps, obviously, you're looking at it and you look at the assets just even divided in half, and you say, okay, after the divorce, we can have these assets in an account. It can generate this much income, and this is what you'll be getting monthly in addition to, let's say, alimony and, and maybe eventually or currently Social Security. So you can kind of start adding all those together and help them better see, okay, this is the amount that's coming in monthly. And then I work with them to see what's a real budget that you're going to have. I'm working with a woman right now, and it's she and her husband together had a pretty high lifestyle, but now she's kind of looking at it and saying, okay, for the first time, really, I sent her a budget worksheet and we're going through it line item by line and saying, okay, what are your real expenses going to be like? Because it always comes down to, just like you mentioned in the book I wrote, the one thing, it comes down to spending and income and how those two work together, to make sure you have a positive cash flow.
Right. I've seen in divorces, and obviously both clients have to provide financial affidavits, and it's an amazing thing. I've learned that you can always spend more than you make, no matter how much you make. I see people with really significant incomes, and they're not only spending everything they make, but they're financially in debt, and you see it on the financial affidavit. So it's good that you help these clients during the process, start the planning process. So what happens after the divorce? How can you help the client after the divorce is finalized?
I mean, after the divorce, that's obviously when it becomes extremely real, because now the separation's occurred. And so we're going to have to actually take those assets and then follow through with, what we talked about during the process, and say, okay, now we're going to start generating this income. Now we're going to make sure, is that budget you put together real? What other unexpected expenses might come up? Because there's a number of them that sometimes people don't consider in the process. Thinking about things like, healthcare. They had a healthcare insurance under their spouse, but now they go through the divorce. Okay, where's that coming from? So there can be a variety of things that we do talk about in the midst of it, like, hey, this expense is going to come up. You might not have thought about it. And now post-divorce, we're actually having to fund and make sure it all works the way we discussed.
That brings up a good point. I know that you are also a member of the NADP, which is the National Association of Divorce Professionals, which support family law attorneys in representing their clients. And I know you just mentioned, like, health insurance can be an issue. And so we have a couple of health insurance agents in the group, financial advisors in the group. So you work with other professionals helping the clients, right? And not just sticking to the financial issues.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just really when you're going through the process, some of those introductions might take place. I know I was actually just this past week talking with a woman I'm working with, and she gave me feedback to a referral I gave her because she got the house in the divorce, but it kind of made her cash poor, house rich. I mean, she's got this big farm. So one of the mortgage brokers in the NADP actually helped her out, reduced her interest rate substantially. So her monthly cash flow is going to be a lot better in the process. So each of those various things, whether it's a CPA, estate planning, because everything's going to change now that pretty much on how your assets will flow. If you pass unexpectedly, the family law process, mortgage brokers, potentially a real estate agent, if you decide, hey, I really don't want this big house, I want to sell it and move somewhere else. So there are a lot of people that can end up being involved in the process. And so based on personality, geography, and so forth, try to connect them to someone and then work with those people to provide information that might, help the process flow a little smoother.
Right. That's really helpful. Thanks. Okay. So what are some of the other major financial issues that you help clients deal with that are going through a divorce?
There can be one of the big ones that comes up if they have children is college planning. Typically, I won't say there's even a typical situation. But if the parents are planning to help fund college, the discussion is going to come up. Okay, what type of college? Is it a state school, a private school? All of a sudden, I got a call a few weeks ago from a divorced clients of mine, and they had agreed upon, hey, we'll fund state college level. He would fund it. Well, now all of a sudden she's going through college prep stuff and applying to Yale and other Stanford, which is going to be substantially different. So it is post-divorce, but they're also having a discussion on, okay, is he going to increase the amount he's going to help because of his daughter doing this? So college one can be kind of a sticky situation. Like I mentioned, the house situation, that can be a big deal about, who's going to keep the primary house. Is it to your benefit to have that primary house, or is it going to be kind of an anchor weighing on you? Now there's there's the financial aspect, but there's the emotional aspect, especially if you have children who are like, okay, I've been used to this house. And one of the spouses are like, hey, I don't want to sell the house the kids are used to being in. And then sometimes the work situation is a real big issue. Maybe one spouse wasn't working for the period of time leading up to divorce. What type of background does she have to get back into the labor market at that point? Is there an opportunity to help with, some of the income? So those are kind of three different big issues.
Yeah, I think the college issue, college is a big one because, it's really up to the attorney to advise the client when you draft the document. Hey, are we going to limit this to a state university? Is it a 4-year program? Is it tuition only, or is it room and board? Is it books? There's a lot of other expenses that go along with college that a lot of clients don't think about. So it's really important in the marital settlement agreement to limit it or define it. So, okay, let's move on. Special issues. I want to talk about when we're dividing up the assets and we put it on what we call an equitable distribution worksheet, and one spouse is getting, let's say, the house, and the other spouse is getting the retirement account. There are what we call appreciated assets that have tax impact that make those assets actually worth less because they're going to be taxed, unlike a house. So talk about that a little bit, what you tell clients.
Yeah, that can be interesting because, sometimes it can seem like an emotional decision versus thinking through what is the tax impact. So, for instance, when you mention a 401k, let's say the husband might have a large 401k at work, and in their mind, the wife is thinking, hey, I want half of that 401k. Well, 401k, when you take those monies out, are going to be 100% taxed. So, in my opinion, it might be a lot better advantage to say, hey, you keep your 401k, but as we're making things equitable, I'll take the assets over in the regular, after tax account, the non-qualified account. And really, you're going to pay capital gains on the gains within there, but you're not going to be paying tax on all of that. So that can potentially, that's a big decision on which type of assets, and talking through with your advisor on the tax aspect of each of these, or your attorney on, who will work with you on that. So I think the tax issue on those are key. The cash flow issue I mentioned before on the house can again be a key issue, because it's a liquidity issue of having to sell a big asset versus I'd rather have the cash for it. Again, that's a big issue to discuss. And then another one that some people don't realize, the tax implications are annuities. I come across those all the time in client accounts. And annuities vary greatly. I mean, they're really complex. A lot of people don't understand even the type of annuity they hold. So you can have some annuities that are geared toward death benefit, but you can have other ones that are geared towards guaranteed cash flow. And I ran into one of those where on paper, the asset if you took the entire asset out and took the cash, you'd get $250,000. But if you took the cash flow, they'd pay you 6% on a $400,000 amount. So it was it was really like looking at two different assets. You could take the cash flow in a $24,000 a year, or if you cashed it out on paper, it was only worth $250,000. So you got to weigh that too, and sometimes and help people understand what they actually own.
Right. So that leads to another question. It's really important to look at the age of the client and their spouse, right? I mean, that impacts their financial future.
Age is a huge factor. I've actually come across that more and more as you see, I guess kind of the over 65 group that are actually getting a divorce. I can speak to it personally because my parents went through a divorce in their late 70s. And one of the issues that doesn't come up a lot, you'll see a lot of writing out there about, hey, if you were married for at least 10 years, then you can get the same Social Security as your spouse later on. But hardly anybody writes about, and I've Google searched it and looked for it. I might have to write my own article on it, but not very many people write about what if you're getting Social Security already, both spouses, and then you get the divorce. Well, it's not the same situation. I found out with my mom, she didn't just get bumped up to get the same Social Security as my dad. And I think the rationale behind that is, well, you could have people play games, and if they were already both getting Social Security, they could have a divorce, still live together, and bump up their Social Security amount. So really, she won't get the same Social Security amount until he dies. So it's really kind of an odd quirk in the system. The other issue that's big for age, I mentioned a little bit, was health insurance. I'm always looking at it. Most people get divorced prior to age 65. So now you start looking, okay, in the divorce, where are you going to get your health coverage until you can get on Medicare? And what's the best, pricing and the best benefit for your buck for that?
Right. I did a prior interview with another NADP group member, Kimberly Stevens, and she talked a lot about the health insurance issues. And so if somebody wanted to watch that video, that would answer a lot of their questions about the Affordable Care Act and about private health insurance and what the coverage is. And you also mentioned a mortgage broker in the group that helped you. And I've previously interviewed Christy Narusi in our group, and she's a mortgage broker and has provided a lot of help to clients lower their interest rates or refinance or purchase a new home. So these are resources available, and I've done a number of interviews. So that's really good. One other age-related issue I don't know if we've touched on yet today. Can you talk a little bit about Medicare?
I mean, only from the standpoint of, the way I try to look at things from a cash flow standpoint up until that age. So typically the Medicare situation is always, it's contingent upon turning age 65. So we're trying to always get the person from whatever age they go through the divorce up to that age in the most effective and efficient way. Then at the point they go on, they can go on Medicare. We'll look at the different types, and typically I'll even bring in some of the specialists for that. They can talk to, okay, A and B. My mom's, full blown all the way to, F plan, which is like the gold standard. So there's different reasons why you might want to choose one of those supplemental plans versus, just the A and B. So that's that is a part of the process and the financial planning.
Right. Good. So, okay, here's a big question for you. What should a client look for in a financial advisor? Try to keep this within less than 20 minutes here, okay?
I'll give you 6 real quick ones. In my book, chapter 15, it's got the 11 questions I would ask if I was interviewing a financial advisor. And it actually has the answers I would be looking for personally. So that's always worth a look. But first of all, I'd ask someone, what are the types of clients that you work with? Do you want to, if you're somebody that's going through a divorce, do you want to work with someone that's primarily focused on, business executives? Might not be a great fit, even though you might be getting some assets in the divorce that they might like to manage. They might not know a lot about some of the topics. So knowing the types of clients they work with, how many clients do they work with? How busy is this person going to be to communicate with me? How many meetings are they going to have with me a year? And is it going to be them, or is it going to be an assistant, or do they have a team and I just meet with them on the way in the door, but then I get pushed off to somebody else I don't know? So, those are important things. Obviously, fees are something that should come up, and a financial advisor shouldn't be apologetic about it. I mean, they're getting paid to do work. So how do they charge? Do they charge a commission on their investments? Do they charge an asset management fee? Do they charge a fixed flat fee for helping you through the process? So getting a good understanding of that. On the investment side, are they personally managing the money, or do they use a third party that they, another fees layered on, and they kind of send the assets over there and that group's managing? Because that happens a lot in our industry. So those are, just some of the 6 of probably 11 that I would start with, but they're things you want to understand the answer to and know what you're getting.
Right. Well, that's good. I mean, the purpose of this channel is, I believe, that families matter. And I want to provide hope and help to families to successfully navigate the family law process in a healthy way. And these interviews are part of that, trying to provide this type of content to people know, is there a good financial advisor out there, mortgage broker, insurance agent, realtor? I mean, all of that adds value. So that's part of our purpose here. So everyone knows this is the Healthy Family Law Attorney. So do you have a healthy tip today for our audience?
Yeah, bacon. No,
bacon. Okay. Keep going,
that's right. My healthy tip is actually communication. And I say this from someone who married a spouse who came from an extremely healthy communication family. So she grew up, things were openly discussed, emotions were allowed to flow freely. I don't know if it's my Germanic background, but in our family, if you showed emotion, it was squashed. So, whether it was anger, you were mocked, so it was kind of, those things were suppressed. The communication with my parents was, hey, sweep it under the rug as quickly as possible and move on. Let's not discuss the past, and, to help our future. So, it took me a while to grow into being a healthy communicator, but fortunately over time, my wife unfortunately had to be part of the process of helping me limp to the healthy side. But now we're at a place, and even on the financial side, where we get together monthly over coffee, and we talk about our budget for the month. And one healthy communication thing is, we'll bring up, hey, she brings up an issue that she might want to spend money in that wasn't on our previous month. And if I'm in agreement, great. Let's say it's spending on some shoes or clothes. Well, when she comes in the door with some packages, I don't have to say, hey, what did you buy? Is that in the budget? It's like, we already discussed it. So it's not an issue. So that's my healthy tip.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought up communication, because I just shot a video, believe it or not, on how to avoid divorce. I know that may sound a little counterintuitive, like, okay, I'm a family law attorney trying to help people avoid divorce. But the big three, communication is number one, then finances and intimacy are 2 and 3. But I believe communication affects both finances and intimacy. So that's perfect for a healthy tip. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the channel today. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. To my audience, if you've enjoyed this, hit that like button. Love it if you subscribe to the channel. I'm bringing out new videos every Wednesday, financial topics, and every Friday with these interviews that I'm hoping will provide that value to you and help you through the process. So thanks for being on the channel today. To my audience, Eric, thank you so much again, and we will see you all next time.